This is quite the tragedy, actually. I mean, this is really something. First of all, we just want to say that all of the victims, their souls are in our prayers. The families of the victims of this tragic, what appears to be accident, at least as far as what we're getting right now out of, what we have access to in the corporate media.
I have no idea what he's talking about right now.
I tend to look into a lot of diggers and truth tellers in the digital media space.
He looks at diggers and truth tellers. No, you don't. It's like the exact opposite of that, actually, but okay.
As far as we can tell right now, this was an accident. It doesn't seem like a very common thing. It's obviously not a common thing. I mean, we're not here every day talking about Black Hawk helicopter crashes.
Oh, okay. It was a helicopter crash running into like the airplane, right? And it was 100% completely Trump's fault, from my understanding. There have been like 3 plane crashes within like the first 2 weeks of his administration or something, bizarrely. Yeah, okay.
With civilian aircraft. I was just talking with Frankie Stocks, who's here. Actually, there he is. He's in the green room. I was just talking with Frankie just a second ago about all of this. Trump, first of all, went right out and lashed out at Joe Biden.
He did, yeah. So Stu Peters claims that he did not vote for Donald Trump. I don't think I believe that, but whatever. He supports Donald Trump's policies all the way down. Either way, it's irrelevant. But sometimes he does criticize Trump on occasion.
This is according to CNBC, and I've seen this report elsewhere. DEI efforts responsible for the plane crash. The disaster is the deadliest U.S. plane crash in more than 2 decades. Trump did not provide evidence that the Biden-era efforts had anything to do with the crash.
Yeah, it wasn't DEI efforts is the problem. It wasn't DEI efforts. Like, Trump just made that shit up out of whole cloth. He just said that he said, the investigation has not completed, but I'm just going to come out and say it. It was DEI. Where did you get that?
Well, I mean, that's fair.
You know where Trump got it? I'll tell you where Trump got it. I made a wise decision keeping this image open. That's where Trump got it, right there. Works cited, crack pipe.
But what we could say is, obviously, all right, so there was some obscure airline that was...
Obscure? It was American Airlines, wasn't it?
Flying on behalf of American Eagle, which is the...
American Eagle's a clothing brand, brother.
Regional airline that you use when you're making short American Airlines connecting flights. So, for example...
Okay, hold on. I got to find this out. Is American Eagle an airline? It is. Oh, my God. Look, sometimes I say, am I the idiot? In this one case, I guess I am, huh? Okay. American Eagle is a regional airline brand. Okay, fair enough. Go on. Truth teller, Stu.
Flying on behalf of American Eagle, which is the regional airline that you use when you're making short American Airlines connecting flights. So, for example, if I fly to Vero Beach, Florida, when I leave Minneapolis, I'm on board a larger plane. I then fly into North Carolina or Atlanta, and I get onto one of these CRJs and fly from Atlanta or North Carolina into Melbourne Airport, which is this small airport that just has like four gates at it. But it's very convenient. I love it. But you're on board one of these small planes. They kind of look cool, too. I like these things.
Okay.
But if you're flying a CRJ 700 regional jet, chances are you're a hire that happened within the last 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, it would be...
Why would those be the chances? What are you talking about? Chances are you were hired in the past 4 years? Aside from that, to my knowledge, it's not the airlines. It wasn't the airline's fault. It was the control towers, which I believe are federally staffed, if I'm not mistaken. Like, the federal government staffs these things, and Trump just fired a whole bunch of federal employees that work for these air traffic control towers. And, like, 3 planes drop out of the sky as a result. I don't know how it gets any clearer, honestly. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Okay, let's continue.
Plausible that this pilot was hired and gained employment with American Airlines or American...
It was not the pilot's fault. It was air traffic control's fault. They're the ones that are responsible for tracking which planes are in the sky and where, and they dropped the ball. 90% of air traffic control towers are understaffed. 90%. And Trump just went on a firing spree recently.
That happened within the last 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, it would be plausible that this pilot was hired and gained employment with American Airlines or American Eagle or whatever airline it is that he was flying on behalf of on this regional flight, it would be safe to assume that he was probably hired during the Biden administration.
No, it wouldn't. Where are you getting this? You're just like making this shit up? Once again, works-cited crack pipe?
Jesus warned us, Stu, can you cover the Chinese? They picked up in Florida. There's also a Navy recruitment office in California. They only speak Chinese.
A Navy recruitment office in Florida only speaks Chinese, is what you're telling me. Do they believe this shit? Is this real? I can't imagine that poor dumb fools really believe this. But then I remember 7% of the U.S. thinks that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. That fact keeps me grounded.
Also a Navy recruitment office in California. They only speak Chinese. Yeah, I'm going to get to all of you guys. It's really important. This is a very interactive broadcast today.
Like what would the Chinese's goal be in recruiting people to the Navy? I don't understand what the point of that would even be. And why would they only speak Chinese? They live in America. It's like impossible to get by without speaking English here. These people are the most gullible suckers on the face of the planet.
Today, I'm going to get to all of the super chatters and our supporters.
Super chatters? Oh, you're right. He's on Rumble. Does Rumble have super chat?
Because there's going to be a lot of you weighing in on this. A lot breaking. If you're just joining us, welcome on Rumble, on Locals, as well as on X. No survivors expected after plane carrying 64 collides with Black Hawk helicopter near D.C. President Trump criticized the Federal Aviation Administration's diversity push in remarks after the crash as authorities continue a recovery operation. I believe that they have pulled 27 bodies they have recovered. It's just a real tragedy. Our prayers are...
Like he gives a shit, and now he's gonna blame, like, black people for this, of course.
With all of the survivors of this, because, I mean, they're the ones that are going to feel it, obviously. We'll pray for the souls of those that were on board. We do want to get to the bottom of this. I mean, it really sucks that we're living in such a time right now where it's like, okay, there's this tragic plane crash, and we should all mourn that and pray for of course, obviously, pray for the souls of the lost, and pray for the first responders that are out there risking their own lives to recover those that have lost their lives. And then, of course, to pray for the families and the loved ones of those who perished in a tragedy like this.
Real Pumpkin J, 120, FAA administrator pushed out, hiring freeze. 121, Trump disbands Aviation Security Advisory Committee. 129, first passenger airline collision in 16 years. One air traffic controller for job requiring at least 2. Yeah, I appreciate the super chat and the clarification. Like, these plane crashes are directly linked to Donald Trump's doing, and he's blaming black people. This is like the quintessential example of fascism in action right here. This is like a perfect view of fascism that we're getting, like a perfect glimpse into what it is and how it works. Fascism does really terrible shit to benefit one demographic in the country, the rich. That's what fascism is for. And it turns everybody on some minority group and blames them for the problems, rather than who's actually to blame for the problems, which is the rich, the filthy rich. And when they finally gain power and get what they want, it is a self-immolating ideology. It turns on itself. It destroys itself. It's not self-sustaining. Fascism isn't. It can't. Fascism brings extremists to power, at which point they destroy the system. So what we're watching now is Donald Trump, blaming minority groups, blaming trans people for the problems in society. And when he finally gets to power by doing so, claiming that like trans people are all over the place, using girls' bathrooms and all that shit. When he manages to take power by doing that, he starts wrecking the system, making the rich even richer, and continues to blame the poor, blame like minority groups for the problems, even though it was directly him that caused it. This is the end result of fascism, the inevitable result of fascism.
But also at the same time, although be it I feel kind of bad doing this, you have to do some, speculation with skepticism. that this, may potentially have not been an accident.
You do? You have to do speculation with skepticism that this isn't an accident, that somebody intentionally ran two planes into each other? Why? There is no, you don't. You don't have to do that. When you have reason to wonder if that's the case, then yeah, you do that. There is no reason to think that. There is no explanation for that. No reasonable person would come to that conclusion. Oh my God, I just jumped into a lava waterfall.
It's a Black Hawk helicopter. This gets done all the time. And we're going to go over one of these analyses that I saw. I've got the video here, and I'm going to react to this. And I was unaware that there was this base that was literally right across the river, right across the Potomac from the Reagan International Airport, where air traffic control was trying to get these planes landed safely. But there's a base right across the Potomac from the airport. And according to this guy that did this analysis, who I believe sounds very educated.
Okay, wow. Then he's super trustworthy, right? If Stu believes he sounds very educated, then he's most definitely very educated, right? Totally.
I haven't vetted the guy. I don't know who he is. But what he's saying seems very objective. But right across the Potomac, there is...
Like, what an incredibly stupid thing to say.
There's this base, and they fly this route quite frequently. So this is something that happens all the time. Now, I also did hear that there were 3 on board the Black Hawk. That is according to our Zionist Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
Oh, yeah. Stu Peters is also like a Nazi. I think I mentioned. I've talked about this before, but Zionism is actually like a mirror ideology to Nazism. So don't think I'm like defending the state of Israel. I'm absolutely not. Zionists are people that believe that Israel has the sole right to control that entire region, and it was given to them by God, basically. And they're religious extremists that will do whatever it takes to name that area Israel and ethnically cleanse it in the name of God. So I don't want anyone to think that like I'm in favor of Zionists, but Stu Peters isn't saying this in opposition to Zionism. He's saying this in defense of Nazism. He is a Nazi. So anyway, one more thing I wanted to mention about it was that Zionists in World War II made a deal with Hitler. They worked with him. They signed contracts with him to try to get a better deal for Jews that were fleeing Germany, basically. So my point is that Zionism is a mirror ideology to Nazism. But Stu Peters doesn't care about any of that nuance. He cares about fucking hating Jews, bottom line. That's what it's about for him. Hating Jews, period. I mean, pure, unadulterated psychosis.
He said that there were 3 on board the Black Hawk. Normally to be, I guess, according to what I've heard, to be combat certified or combat approved for deployment in a combat zone, the Black Hawk would have 4 personnel on board.
In a combat zone, right. Well, this wasn't a combat zone. This was probably a training zone, I would assume. And, like, again, they were all white. Everybody in the equation was white, so I don't see how you could possibly blame this on DEI, but okay, go on.
It can be flown with 1. I've also heard that reporting, that it can be flown with 1. They prefer 2 or more. There were 3 on board this one. And
again, don't believe anything out of his mouth. Nothing. Don't trust a word that he says unless you get independent verification, because he lies for a living. And even if he's not lying, he just buys nonsense. Whole cloth. Like, he doesn't vet half the shit that he like listens to or believes. So just be super skeptical of literally every word out of his mouth, even trivial stuff.
4 means ready to be deployed for use in combat. That's just what I've heard. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research on that, but that's what I've heard. Trump lashes out at Biden, DEI efforts after the plane crash. So this is also very interesting when you look at reporting like this, because as Trump is bashing DEI policies and pointing the finger at Joe Biden.
Oh, please tell me you're going to blame Jews. That would just be the icing on the cake with this. Absolute psychosis. I mean, it would seal it for me. How absolutely insane this entire thing is.
It's been widely reported by the corporate Jewish-funded, Rothschild-funded, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street fund.
I told you. I knew that was what was going to happen. My God, dude, get help.
At Joe Biden.
By the way, I'm sorry. the Rothschilds he mentioned there, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this conspiracy theory, but I read about it a good bit recently. The Rothschilds are a family that originally got rich in the 1800s or the 1700s. I don't remember. I think late 1700s. It was a Jewish guy that basically bought a bunch of different currencies so that he could trade currencies. So there were regional wars in the area that he lived, and the governments were trying to hire militias to fight on their behalf, but the militias would only accept payment in their home country's currency. So this guy, Meyer Rothschild, I think is his name, he bought a bunch of currencies and he took payment from the government and paid the mercenaries. It's just currency exchange. He just created a currency exchange is all. And he got pretty wealthy that way. He eventually used his wealth to buy more gold and stuff and loan money to people. Loaning money at this point in time was very much frowned upon for Christians. In fact, it was banned for Christians. They weren't allowed to loan money to each other because there's some shit in the Bible about like usury or something. I don't even remember now. Anyway, the Christians in the area that owned banks noticed that Jews were okay with loaning money to Christians. They couldn't loan money to each other, other Jews, and Christians couldn't loan money to other Christians, but Jews could loan money to Christians and collect interest. So the Rothschilds opened a bank that would loan money to people, and they were a little bit more open about who they loaned money to because, they were gathering interest. Why wouldn't you? Anyway, that is who the Rothschilds are. They started simply as a currency exchange. That's it. And they eventually grew to be like one of the biggest banks in Europe, I think, or like own one of the biggest banks in Europe or whatever. And that's how some conspiracy theories started about Jewish money lending, powerful elite. Blah, 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 blah. When they got enough money, they started like doing what the nobles were doing, the royals or whatever in England. They started like marrying their cousins and stuff. When the English like royal families did that, they ended up with porphyria and a bunch of other ill health effects because you cannot marry your cousins and have children with them. Like it causes genetic defects and problems. But the Rothschilds were a lot more careful about it so that they only ever married people that were distant enough for it to be safe, basically, and keep the money in the family. So the point is, they had mansions and everything. They were rich. They were billionaires, this family. But I don't like billionaires. I think billionaires are, generally speaking, scumbags. I don't believe there is any good billionaire. There can't be a good billionaire because by necessity, they took advantage of a ton of people to get to where they are. But they're no different, the Rothschilds aren't, than any other billionaire. They're not drinking children's blood, as is claimed by Stu Peters. They're not worth trillions of dollars, as claimed by Stu Peters. They don't use their wealth to manipulate all this stuff or whatever, as he claims. In the 1800s, late 17, early 1800s, and into the mid 1800s, there were Napoleonic Wars, where Napoleon was kind of like charging through Europe and taking control of areas, right, in the name of France or whatever. And the Rothschilds, in their early days, funded the opposition to the Napoleonic Wars. Like they loaned money to governments to stop Napoleon from like taking new areas because he was making things very difficult for like Jewish people in the region. And ever since then, people like Alex Jones and others have claimed that the Rothschilds fund both sides of every war. That's just not true. They just don't. I mean, they're a gigantic bank like Chase Bank, for example. And as a big bank, they like operate in multiple countries and loan money to people in multiple countries. But that doesn't mean they're funding both sides of every conflict. In fact, after the Napoleonic Wars, they stopped funding any conflicts because it was just, it led to like nonsensical garbage accusations of them like being deep state operatives or whatever and Alex Jones will not shut up about the Rothschilds. That's like all he talks about, or all he did talk about for a long time. So anyway, that's a little primer on the Rothschilds and why it's complete delusion to claim that there's some conspiracy. I don't even know that they own a bank anymore. By the way, the Rothschilds were the root of the myth in Germany that the Jews controlled the finances, the financial system and everything, and funded both sides of wars. That was the claim from Hitler, and it was about the Rothschilds.
It's been widely reported by the corporate Jewish-funded, Rothschild-funded, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street-funded media that Donald Trump touts the most diverse presidential cabinet and administration in the history of our country.
And of course, Stu Peters is a white supremacist, self-avowed. He says, I am a white supremacist. So I'm not like, he's not playing coy with it. He's just out in the open about it. One other thing about the Rothschilds, here's the interesting thing about the far right. When they create a conspiracy theory like this, they tend to do it about groups or people that are hated, that people don't like. So now when I come out here and I defend the Rothschilds by explaining the real situation, I'm defending billionaires. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to defend billionaires. They're indefensible. So nobody bothers. Nobody bothers to try to defend them because they don't care. They don't like them either. They just know they're not drinking baby blood and shit. That's why they pick the targets that they pick more often than not. I don't hate the Rothschilds. I have nothing against them except for the fact that they're billionaires. They're just not drinking baby blood. Bottom line.
So that's the new based.
Wait, there was a Nazi propaganda movie about the Rothschilds. Did not know that. Fascinating.
Donald Trump touts the most diverse presidential cabinet and administration in the history of our country. So that's the new based, Trump America, that we're just supposed to just believe all of this WWE setup where Trump's lashing out at Biden and politicizing.
Wait, is Stu Peters implying that WWE is fake? Not on my Discord server, good sir.
The plane crash, which, I get it. I understand politicizing. Look, I'm skeptical about the plane crash. I'm questioning the plane crash. The right thing to do is probably to pray for these people, let a couple of days go by, and then kind of start to, speculate if there's any evidence of any kind of.
No, that's not the right thing to do. What are you talking about? If you find evidence of something, then you can raise the questions about whether this plane crash was planned by the deep state, Rothschild, blah, 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 blah. But you have no evidence of any of this. You're just linking it into other conspiracy theories that you have, like with absolutely no reason or logic behind it.
Underhanded, Jewish nonsense, but I'm doing it right away. I'm just going on the record and saying that I'm approaching this with a lot of skepticism. These are military pilots. This is, an international airport with a notoriously short runway. My dad was a pilot. He was a commercial airline pilot, and I talked to him about this airport.
I believe that Stu Peters is a flat earther. I wonder how his dad felt about that one.
And coincidentally, I've talked to my dad about this airport because I've always asked him, like, what was some of your most exciting experiences as a pilot? He would just say, it was noteworthy that DC had a very short runway.
Okay.
I believe the runway.
Okay. Kind of an odd thing to just kind of come up as one of your favorite experiences as a pilot, but whatever. All right.
That they were cleared to land on had just over 5,000 feet of runway, which is about the minimum that you need for one of these CRJs to land. When I flew with Dan Bilzerian, that was a Gulfstream.
Holy shit, dude. Those things are like $50 million to buy. And people like underestimate how much money $50 million is. That's the kind of shit that only billionaires can afford. Even 100 millionaires cannot afford a Gulfstream. Because after purchasing the Gulfstream for $50 million, you then have to pay for like weekly maintenance or even daily maintenance, have to have a pilot on staff and stuff like that. You can't not just anybody can go out and buy a Gulfstream. It is crazy that Stu Peters is so powerful that he knows people with a Gulfstream jet. That's nuts. They're like, how many people in the world even have Gulfstream jets? How many people own Gulfstream private jets? If you're a 100 millionaire instead of a billionaire, rather than buying a Gulfstream, you will likely just borrow a Gulfstream. Like Taylor Swift has famously loaned her, I don't know if it's a Gulfstream, but loaned her jet, her private jet to people out because it's so incredibly expensive to operate one in the first place. And as a result, her carbon footprint is like through the roof if you look, because it's public information how much you fly your jet and where it goes and stuff. Elon Musk, Sergey Brin, Larry Page, Tom Cruise, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they all have Gulfstreams. Kenneth Copeland has a Gulfstream, I believe. They're just trying to figure this out. Okay, it looks like in 2023, 700 new business jets were shipped to the United States. I think it's the US. Maybe it's just worldwide, but that's just new jets. That's not new jet owners. That's people that already own one and just wanted a new, like an updated one or something. Polaris Market Research projects the business jet market to reach $42 billion by 2030. They're selling 700 jets per year, 700 per year, and it's a $42 billion industry. That should give you an idea of how expensive these jets are. It's like, I cannot over exaggerate like how expensive these things are. Stu Peters rides on one. That is nuts.
Minimum that you need for one of these CRJs to land. When I flew with Dan Bilzerian, that was a Gulfstream. I believe that was a G6, his plane, but it could not land at a regional airport that I wanted to land at when Dan brought me back to Minnesota from Las Vegas because the runway wasn't long enough. And I believe that one had nearly 5,000 feet of runway. So it takes a considerable amount of runway, even for what we consider to be smaller passenger aircraft. They're still big freaking planes. And
well, planes are big, so yeah.
They're going 130 to 150 knots on their approach. It takes a considerable amount of runway to slow these things to a stop where they can then safely taxi. I just find it funny that Trump's lashing out at Biden and naming DEI. He has the most diverse cabinet and administration. By the way, right now, more breaking news specifically relating to yours truly and this network, mentioned by a sitting U.S. Senator, this Dick Durbin on Capitol Hill during...
Oh, yeah. This is why I wanted to hear this in the first place, because he's about to absolutely ream Kash Patel for denying knowing him.
The Kash Patel confirmation hearings, Kash Patel, obviously an Indian, a DEI hire to lead the federal law enforcement apparatus.
Wow, I love it. So he says DEI hire as though Kash Patel was just like a random pick because he's Indian and for no other reason. But you know why he's calling him that? He'll tip his hand later and just come out and say it. Because he believes that Indian people are inferior to white people. Just full stop. They're inferior. They're not as good as white people at anything. So the only people running government should be white people, i.e. the best of the best. That is wild.
The FBI. Doesn't surprise me that he lied on Capitol Hill.
Because that's what Indians do, right? They lie. Oh my God, dude. This guy has deep, deep issues. Who hurt him as a kid?
We're going to get over that. My name was brought up on Capitol Hill. We're going to get to all of that. But I do want to get to this video. This is this guy that I was listening to. He's going to kind of break down this plane crash. So let's listen to him.
A quick update on the disaster that just happened in Washington, D.C. between the regional jet and the Army National Guard helicopter Pat-25, where the two aircraft collided just short of final for runway 33 at DCA. Here's what we know so far. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel.
There he is, Ron Brown.
The airspace coming into DCA is extremely busy, including two prohibited areas just to the north of the airport and the Joint Base Bowling located right up here. The RJ, a regional jet, a CRJ 700 coming in from Wichita to DCA operated by PSA Airlines for American Eagle, was cleared for the approach to runway 1. Not sure if it was the instrument.
Bear in mind that whoever Stu Peters is watching here is untrustworthy completely. He could be making this up entirely, for all I know. Don't believe any of this. Look it up independently. Stu Peters has a habit of making claims about things and altering the information just enough to justify his position. Just a little bit. Just modify the facts of the case just a little bit. So even trivial facts need to be verified. Like, don't trust literally anything out of this guy's mouth. Nothing.
Approach, or the river visual approach, to runway 1 circled the land to runway 33.
And you know what else? Like in World War II, the Nazified Christianity, they didn't have to change the Bible pretty much at all. They just like left out pieces of it and found a way to justify the belief that Jews should be exterminated and a whole bunch of other wild beliefs that they eventually built into Christianity. So they don't even have to lie to completely distort and twist shit around.
So what that means is the RJ flies the approach to this runway 1, the long runway, and then sidesteps around here to a left dogleg entry to runway 33, the relatively short runway, about 5,200 feet long here at Washington, D.C., a very demanding approach. This crew is focused on this approach. This mid-air collision occurred just below 400 feet above the ground. The National Guard helicopter, believed to be either a UH-60 or VH-60, Victor H-60, was presumably operating out of Joint Base Bowling, located right here. Here's where the helicopters operate out of. They have this procedure where they can dart across the Potomac River right across the final approach for these.
So he's already saying exactly what I said, that this is something that they do all the time.
I mean, it's an airline pilot, so yeah, I would assume that he lands a plane all the time. I'm not sure. Are you counting a W for that one, Stu? Really?
Yeah, runway 33, I'm sure it's nothing. Yeah, I know. I feel the same way, and it feels goofy and weird to think like that, but I mean, we live under the empire of lies, and they're
oh my God. He says, I feel goofy for thinking that. When he says thinking that, I assume he means believing this was intentional? Like, really? Who would, when in a police investigation, there are a couple of kind of rules that you need to follow or standards that you operate by. Number one, the simplest explanation is probably the correct explanation. And number two, you need means, motive, and opportunity to establish some like crime generally in the legal system as a standard, as a rule, not as like a law. And we have an event taking place. What is the motive? And how would that even happen? Why would somebody set out to run two like flying craft into each other? Why would that happen? Why would they do that? There's no motive. And what would the opportunity be? Somebody would have to have incredible power to do that. But Donald Trump has incredible power right now. He is the one at the head of government. I don't know, where Stu is getting this. Why is he concluding this? I mean, the power necessary to make that happen would be obvious. You wouldn't, if you had the power to do that and you made it happen, it would be impossible to avoid finger pointing on that. There is no one person that could organize this massive crash without having the finger pointed at them. There just isn't. So this is just straight up delusion all the way down. He's not processing this at all. Stu Peters is absolutely insane. There are people pretending to be ICE agents who harass immigrant-looking people. Why does that not surprise me? Have you heard about Gaza or the fake ICE agents? Have heard about Gaza. Did not hear about the fake ICE agents.
Murderers and their child.
Brother, why? Why are you like this? Why do you do this? Holy shit, man. Get help. This is the case for all of his conspiracy theories. There is no means, motive, or opportunity for any of it. It's just, and he said it earlier. It's not even like there's reason to believe that this happened. He just says it's his obligation to think that there's a conspiracy underneath. Why? Who gave you that mandate to believe this? What purpose would be served? I don't understand. Delusion all the way down.
Chairman, I'm struggling with a bit of the flu here, but thought it was really important to
Who's
come.
that talking now?
He's got flu.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough, but I appreciate the time. And
Is this Capitol Hill? Mute that. We're going to get to that in just a minute.
Oh, wow. Okay, I guess they were just playing a clip by mistake. Interesting.
let's get back to this guy here breaking down this. But what he was saying is exactly what I just said, that there is a flight pattern that occurs very regularly and very frequently that goes across the Potomac from this military base, into the airspace that's frequently used by passenger aircraft and others that are landing at the international airport. So let's continue listening to this. I think this is a pretty good analysis.
That should be our hint to realize that it's an absolutely terrible analysis.
On social media, here comes the regional jet.
Of any
We
plans
are looking to the
or
south.
discussion?
The production value on this is trash. Pull it together, Stu Peters Network.
Okay, I don't know what is going on. Like, do we have somebody working here that can help?
Oh boy, wow. Take that, you dumb motherfuckers.
That can help with this? What's going on with this? I have no idea what this is that's happening.
I don't call people that very often, but when it's Nazis, I make an exception. I believe the death penalty is wrong in every case, full stop. That's it. I believe violence is wrong, full stop. But watching everything unfold recently with like the Nazis and everything else coming out of the woodwork doing Heil Hitler salutes, that's putting that belief to the test. We'll put it that way.
Happening.
Stu, do you have a DEI hire in there? Is that what it is?
No, I have not. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to deal with what I'm listening to these guys over here trying to tell me what it is that I need to do from my end to get this Capitol Hill thing to stop. We do want to get to that because obviously there's breaking news out of Capitol Hill. So we'll get to that here in just a second. But where are these clowns? I can't see it on my monitor. I don't know. We got to get to this though because this guy does a pretty good analysis. So where is it? Oh, here it is. I think I see it. Bear with me, guys. Oh, yeah, there it is. Look at this Kash Patel. Speaking of DEI hires. All right.
Were we speaking of DEI hires?
So let's go back to, where was I here? Here it is. All right. Sorry, guys.
I forgive you, Stu.
When you have this live stuff, can I hear?
Yeah, when you have DEI hires like this, right, Stu?
Hear it?
I thought you were working with the brightest and the best. What happened to the superior race? Don't you have all Aryans working there? Why can't they put a production set together? What's going on? Like, look, I don't have any employees, but if I did, they would definitely be DEI hires, and my production is way better than yours. You know what? I'm half Native American. Why is my production way better than yours? You as an Aryan. Why am I, a mongrel, better than you, an Aryan, Stu? Something's not adding up here, almost like your ideology is complete bullshit. Stu isn't lying to me, is he?
Where is it? No, I can't.
Half now? It's gone up. No, it's half on my birth certificate, technically, but it's not half. It's actually like 1/16 or something. It's really low. My grandma was very, very involved in her Native American heritage, and I grew up going to like Native American events, powwows, and I had a dream catcher by my bed, very immersed in the culture. But yeah, I'm surprised that they managed to put one half on my birth certificate like that without any pushback from the state. I guess it was a different time. You could put pretty much anything on a birth certificate, I suppose. I would be considered Aryan by Hitler, if that helps. It's distant enough because the Nuremberg laws basically said if you have a non-Aryan grandparent, so like if my grandma were like full-blooded Native American or something, then I might be considered, but she wasn't. So I would probably like fall into the Aryan category. I'm more culturally Native American than genetically, just because I grew up in that, that kind of environment or whatever. But yeah.
Can't hear him. All right, here we go.
This is what happens when all you have on your set are dipshit Aryans who are obsessed with how fucking incredible they are. This is what you get. Stupid motherfuckers like this.